Hello, everybody. Welcome to another YouTube video. And today, as you can see, we have a tier list video. And this tier list is me ranking the top 25 players in the NBA right now. I also want to quickly say before we start that the order I put the players in for this particular video does matter. So in this case, let's say, for example, I put Joel Embiid in the top five tier here, and I also put Kevin Durant in the top five tier, but I have Durant in front of Embiid. That means I think Durant's a better player. So just keep that in mind as I go through the tiers of the players. So the order along with the tier matters. All right, with that out of the way, we're just gonna get right into it with the first player we have here. We have LeBron James. So I think LeBron's definitely a top five player still. He's leading the league in scoring right now in his 19th year of his career. He's definitely a top five player. Jokic, MVP candidate Nikola Jokic. He's also definitely a top five player. I think that's a pretty easy one. Jason Tatum, the Celtics have been really, really good recently, and so is he. So I think he's definitely a top 10 player in the league right now. Another very hot player on another hot team is Devin Booker on the Phoenix Suns. I think being the best player on the best team should automatically make you a top 10 player in the league. So I have Booker in the top 10. Next, we have Levine. I think we're going to put him in the 16 through 20 range for now. We could move him around. We'll see, though. But he's been really good this season. He's made an all-star team again this year. He's definitely a top 20 player in the league. Kevin Durant, another top five player in the league. Not much to be said about Kevin Durant. That's not a controversial pick. Luka Doncic, I think Luka's not a top five player in the league, but he's close. So I'm going to put him in the 6 through 10 range. James Harden, what used to be a lock for the top 10, I think has now fallen out of the top 10 players in the league, and I'm going to put him in the 11 through 15 range. Steph Curry, this is probably a pretty controversial pick, but I'm going to put Curry in the 6 through 10 range because I think I could think of two more players I would want to put in this top five over Steph Curry. And I don't think Steph Curry, I would put him over LeBron. I don't think I would put him over Jokic. So for now, I'm going to have Steph Curry in the sixth spot. Next, we have Donovan Mitchell. In my opinion, Donovan Mitchell is one of the most underrated players in the league. I think he's definitely a top 15 player. I think he's been a top 15 player in the league for probably the past 2 years. He's definitely very, very underrated. Jimmy Butler has been getting a lot of hate recently, which makes no sense to me. Uh, People say comparing him to Westbrook because of his 3-point shooting and stuff like that. He's still a borderline top 15 player in the league. Uh, I don't get what the Russell Westbrook comparisons because Butler scores better, he passes better, he rebounds better. He's just a better overall player, and he's actually a better 3-point shooter. He's had this one bad stretch of 9% 3-point shooting, and he's the best player on the best team in the Eastern Conference. So these Russell Westbrook comparisons make no sense, and it's stupid, these Russell Westbrook comparisons, because Butler's nowhere near as bad as Westbrook is. Draymond Green has missed a lot of time from with the Warriors recently, but you could clearly see how impactful he was on this team, as they have been clearly much worse without him. So I think that makes him a top 25 player, but he's barely a top 25 player. Next, we have Giannis. I think Giannis is the best player in the league right now. He just got a big win over the Sixers last night with the game-saving block on Embiid. He's arguably the most dominant player in the league. He's good at everything. He's improved his 3-point shooting. I think Giannis is the best player in the league right now. Next, we have Bam Adebayo, somebody who's recently come back from an injury, and he's been really, really good for the Heat. And I think he's uh, been a top five center in the league since he's come back. Next, we have Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown has been good this season. He's definitely not as good as he was last year, as he was an all-star last year, and he wasn't an all-star this year. But he's definitely been a very impactful two-way player for the Celtics, and he's coming to understand that his role is not being the first option and the main scorer, and that he's going to be more of a complementary player to Jason Tatum. Next, we have DeMar DeRozan. I think most people would expect me to put him in the 6 through 10 range, but I think he's slightly worse than Jason Tatum. And I have somebody else I'm going to add to the 6 through 10 range. So for now, I'm going to put DeMar DeRozan in this 11 spot right here because I think as of right now, I would take Tatum over DeMar. Next, we have Lillard, who's someone who had a pretty rough year and then got injured, but he was still a top 20 player in the league when he was playing. And I'm judging him based off of those that first half of the season when he was still healthy. And he was not an all-star player, but he was still a top 20 player. So I'm going to put him in that 16 through 20 range. Next, we have Chris Paul, somebody who missed a lot of time for the Suns in the past month but has recently come back. He's not going to impact you on the scoring end, but he's going to help you on the passing end as he's the best passer in the NBA, one of the best passers of all time. He's a top perimeter defender in the league. He has the highest IQ out of any player in the league. And if he wants to, he can give you about 20 to 15 points a game, which is still really good if he's putting up almost 11 assists. Next, we have Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns has been very, very good in this past month. He had a 60-point game a few weeks ago. I think he's definitely a top 20 player in the league right now. I think he's the third best center in the league right now. So I have him in that 16 through 20 range. Next, we have Joel Embiid, the last guy to be in our top 5 range. He's an MVP candidate. He's averaging 29.9 points per game. We'll call it at 30. He's probably the most dominant player in the league. Him or Giannis are probably the two most dominant players in the league. He's obviously a top 5 player. Next, we have Ja Morant, and Ja Morant's going to finish out our 6 through 10 range. Ja Morant has been slightly worse than what we've come to expect from him this season in the past 10 games. But man, overall this season, has he been insane. He's been carrying this Grizzlies squad. Yes, they're very well built, but without him, I don't care about that run they went on. Without him, they're not a top 8 seed in the Western Conference. He's one of the best passers in the league. He was one of the best inside scorers in the league. Given his height, he's still one of the best inside scorers in the league. Seems like nobody can stop him from getting to where he wants to be on the court offensively. He's a great defensive player. He does it all at an elite level, so he's definitely a top 10 player in the league. Next, we have Trae Young. Trae Young is going to finish out our 11 through 15 range. Yes, the Hawks are a 10 seed, but that, believe me, that has nothing to do with Trae Young. He's 4th in the league in points per game. He's averaging almost 10 assists a game. The reason the Hawks aren't playing as well as they were last year isn't because Trae Young got worse. It's because all his teammates are just much worse. Capella has been much, much worse this year than he was last year. John Collins has been on and off the court with injuries, and when he's on the court, he just hasn't looked as like a good second option. DeAndre Hunter has not improved at all. Bogdanovich has not improved at all. Herter got this big contract and has seemingly gotten worse. So Trae Young's still a top 15 player in the league. It's just a lot of people disrespect him because of his of how the team is playing, but that's has nothing to do with him as he's having the best statistical season of his career. Next, we have Darius Garland, who I'm going to put in this 21 through 25 range. I think he's definitely better than Draymond and Jaylen Brown as of right now. Garland is been probably the most surprising player this year. If I were to give the most improved player award, I'd probably give it to him. He was statistically one of the worst players in the league last year and has now become an all-star, averaging about 20 points and 9 assists a game. He's a top 5 passer in the league. He's a fantastic 3-point shooter. He's good defensively. He's definitely a top 25 player in the league. Next, we have Siakam, and a lot of people might be shocked that I have Siakam as a top 25 player in the league, but I actually think Siakam is the most underrated player in the league. In the last 10 games alone, he's averaging 28 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists in the last 10 games. He had a 40-point game against the number 1 defensive team in the league, the Boston Celtics. Yes, they were shorthanded on guys like Jason Tatum and Robert Williams, but still putting up 40 points per game, 40 points on the best defensive team, no matter who they have, is still very, very impressive. I believe he should have been an all-star this year, and I think he's going to make an all-NBA team this year. So he'll be one of very few players in history to make an all-NBA team without making an all-star team. And I think he's definitely deserving of an all-NBA team the way he's been playing the second half of the season. Next, we have Rudy Gobert. We know he's a top 25 player. He's a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year once again. He's the best shot blocker in the league. Yes, his offense is a little underwhelming. given the rest of the talent of offense from the rest of these guys. But when you're so good defensively, you have to be a top 25 player. That's my top 25 players list in the league right now. If I were to give some honorable mentions, some guys that I think could maybe replace some of these guys I have at the 21 through 25 spot right here. Off the top of my head, maybe I'd think of guys like Fred VanVleet, Jared Allen, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, maybe Brandon Ingram, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. I think those would probably be my top honorable mention players. So if I had to sub anybody out, I would pick one of those few players I just mentioned. So this is my top 25 players list. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you're here for the next video. I'm out.